Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 John Deere Initial Research Show. First off, if you see flashes of light or hear the rain or thunder, as you can tell, I am broadcasting through another thunderstorm. Life is such in the Midwest, but I'm going to try to get through it. So the first thing is, if the power goes out, I will have an extra long or elongated show tomorrow. Hopefully we can get through the show tonight, but if it does cut out, I will prolong the show tomorrow. But hopefully your travelers went well. Hopefully you had a lot of JT Poston, who I was really high on, and you avoided the plays that I recommended, like Tom Hoagie, because that went very well for me. Lots of good, lots of bad. Jump in chat, let me know how the travelers went for you. DFS wise was a pretty poor showing. Not quite a disaster, but it was pretty darn close to it. Fortunately, my week was saved from a couple of outright wagers, especially those around JT Poston. As I mentioned, I was pretty high on him. So again, hopefully your travelers went well. You had Xander Schauffele, or you bet him, had him a ton, all that good stuff. And then what are you looking forward to for the John Deere and all that stuff? So let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best resource out there for anything golf related. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the descriptions to the video, there are links to my social media. This is where I place my betting cards for the golf content I create, as well as any interesting research throughout the week for my golf and baseball content. So if you would like to see some of that research, make sure to give me a follow at the links in the descriptions. And then finally, we're live. Chat is open. As you can tell, we're live from the thunderstorm outside. But again, I want to hear from you all. Did you have Xander outright? Did you use a lot of Xander, JT Poston, perhaps Seth Tagala, who I was way too low on? Did you follow my advice and take Tom Hoagie and he backfire and blow up a lot of your lineups? So want to hear about all that, and then anything you're looking forward to for the John Deere this week. So let's get into it. Let's do our initial research for the 2022 John Deere. And we start with the tournament fact sheet over at GCSAA. And we are in Silvis, Illinois, at TPC Deere Run, where this course, this course has hosted this tournament for as long as I can remember. Silvis, Illinois being the headquarters for John Deere. So TPC Deere Run, John Deere Classic. It is a DA Waybrink design, so nothing to go on in terms of architect in Fantasy National. The course is set up as a par 71 that measures right at 7,300 yards. So not long, but certainly nothing short like the Travelers was, not like Sony or any of these other courses that have been cropping up that are short lately. Much more on the longer side, but no short course metrics, long course metrics to go over. So we're striking out so far. We're 0 for 2. No course architect, no yardage over 7,400, shorter than 72. The stimp, it reads at 12. As we see in Fantasy National, the greens are pretty inconsistent in terms of speed readings between fast and average. So I'm not sure we're going to have any green speeds either. However, what we do know, the green sizes are slightly smaller than tour average, 5,500 square feet as opposed to 6,000, the average tour event. Quite a bit of fairway. These fairways are generally easy to hit. A whole lot of rough and a whole lot of very deep rough. There are 3 holes with water in play. And what we do know for 100% fact, as opposed to last week where it was bent and POA, this is just pure bent. Bent on the greens, bent in the fairways, and then bluegrass and fescue in the rough. So we are definitely going to be taking a look at bent grass performance I don't think the Travelers statistics are in Fantasy National yet. Could be wrong. If they are, we're definitely going to take a look at that and see if it was classified as bent or POA. But if it is bent, then we're definitely going to take a big look at it. But definitely going to be having some bent grass metrics we can look at. Maybe some long rough around the green type stuff. But there is one overarching feature of this tournament year over year, and we'll see that in Fantasy National. So nothing for Architect. The course sets up as average distance, a little bit on the longer side, but average in distance. Small-ish greens, but by no means tiny. A lot of rough, a lot of thick, heavy rough, and then bent grass greens. So there's a look at TPC Deere Run from a GCSAA fact sheet perspective. We move now to Fantasy National, and as you can see, I haven't even pre-sorted anything or whatnot, so let's go ahead and do that just to get prepared for some of the statistics that we want to look into. So let's see, last 6 months, 36 rounds. Let's see, who are the top performers since essentially the calendar year 1/1/22. Those top performers, no filters, just pure strokes gained total. Davis Riley, Adam Hadwin, Denny McCarthy, Jason Day, Daniel Berger, Bezaden Hoot, Nate Lashley, C.T. Pan, Brendan Todd, and Patrick Rogers. So again, some decent names here. You got Maverick McNeely, who has not been playing well as of late here. Sahith Tagala, the unfortunate double bogey on 18 that prevented pretty much a chance to win, or at the very least a playoff. Let's see, you've got Nick Hardy, another rookie who had a very, very poor start to the season, which I did not know he was dealing with an injury. And then now that he has recovered from said injury, top 15s, the Open, and then top 20s, the Travelers. Actually, I think he might have top 10, in fact, today. So some interesting names, interesting storylines. The real heavy hitters, JT, Scotty Scheffler, Rory, Jordan Spieth, they take the week off. They're actually going to fly over to Scotland to prepare for the Open Championship. But before we get too much further into that, let's take a look at TPC Deere Run from a breakdown perspective. So I mentioned that there was one overarching feature year over year at TPC Deere Run. When we look at a scorecard, first thing I like to look at is the 9th and 10th most difficult holes, because if par falls somewhere in between there, it's going to be an average difficulty course. Well, hole 10 plays to about 5/100ths under par. Hole 9, 2/100ths. Hole 8 is still under par. Hole 7, difficulty still under par. Hole 6 is where you get over. So in between the 6th and 7th most difficult hole on the course is where par falls. That tells you the course is pretty darn easy, including the par 5 second that plays to more than a half a shot under par. And while it is a very good eagle chance, it's about the really only great eagle chance, but there are a whole lot of birdies on this course. It is very easy year over year. So we're the overarching filter that we're going to be using this week is easy courses. But here's a look at the scorecard as we were doing. All 3 par 5s fall between 550 and 600. Although this one does play over 600 from time to time due to how close it is to 600. It just measures 596 on the scorecard. Not a lot of long holes other than this and a very long par 3 at 226 is where a lot of the length comes in. But the par 4s are pretty well evenly split. The par 3s are pretty evenly split among different lengths. Just a fun layout of a course, pretty balanced in terms of lengths, just very easy. And we'll see that here in a bit, but the average strokes gained by shot type per round. The top 10s you see like a normal tournament or a usual distribution of stats here. Strokes gained approach is the highest, putting fairly close, then off the tee and around the green are lagging behind, but both approach and off the tee are higher than their counterparts putting and around the green. So ball striking for the top 10s, more important than the short game. Top 5s, you got more of the same, although around the green is starting to catch up to the off the tee. Approach is really starting to gain steam in terms of being the most important. But then things change. For the winners, it is all about the putting. So it's going to be interesting to try to differentiate between the players who top 5 versus the winners. So you see winners a whole lot of putting, then approach, and around the green and off the tee actually even out, basically. I mean, off the tee is still higher, but you got a half a shot for strokes gained off the tee per round for the winners. And around the green is 0.47, so it's very, very close. And because of that, the short game outweighs the ball striking in terms of importance for winners. But top 5s and top 10s, I'll even go to the top 20s, it's ball striking. But for the winners, it becomes a short game contest or tournament due to the putting. So we come back to the top 10s here. Strokes gained by hole by par. Par 5s, probably no surprise, especially that very easy par 5 second. You got another decent eagle chance on the back. So par 5s, most important. Then we go to the top 5s. Again, still strokes gained par 5s. The 3s and the 4s are staying relatively even with each other in terms of each other. So we'll go back to the top 10s here. You've got 0.14 from the strokes gained par 4 and 0.13 for the par 3s. We come to the top 5s. You've got 0.16 and 0.145. So the strokes gained par 4 gain just a bit of steam, but not really. They're essentially staying at the same rate of increase. And then the par 3s really skyrocket for the winners. So two big things here: strokes putting for the winners and par 3s for the winners. So again, it's going to be very important to differentiate between the top 5 performers and the winners, given these graphs of importance. So we'll definitely be taking a look at that. We might take a look at it some tonight, but we'll really scrutinize that tomorrow on the Data Dive show. We move to the hole composition. And as I was mentioning earlier, I'm actually going to work backwards here at TBC Deere Run. All 3 par 5s fall between 550 and 600. Again, that 596 will play into the 600 plus bucket from time to time, probably once in a tournament year. But anything par 5 related, we're going to be heavily looking at this range just because all 3 fall into that category, and the other 2 measure at about 561 and 569, I believe. So not a lot of chance to go into the 500 to 550. Then your par 4s. You've got one extremely long one, 503. I didn't want to tell you wrong. It is the most difficult hole on the course. It does play to 2/10 over par, so not easy by any stretch. So 503 yard par 4 here, and then a pretty even distribution of par 4s. You've got 3 long par 4s, 450 to 500, 4 medium length, and 3 short-ish par 4s. So even distribution, nothing to hone in on, at least graphically, in terms of par fours as opposed to the par fives. And again, we'll really scrutinize it in the data dive show if one of these, probably three, are the most important. And then the par threes, one each in each of the buckets: 150 to 175, 175 to 200, 200, 225, and 225 plus. Approach shot distribution. You have the majority of shots coming here at TBC Deere Run at 200 plus and 125 to 150, although in terms of the average tour event, the 125 to 150 here is the most prominent. You've got 20% here at TBC Deere Run versus 17% at the average tour event. So again, graphically, it would say that perhaps 125 to 150 is the most important approach shot length here. We'll scrutinize that for sure tomorrow. Just to speak to the easiness of the course, the historic cut line in 2003 was +2, and then every year since has been under par and been averaging, I would say, -3. You could argue -2, but -2, -3 has been your cut line. -3 is defined as easy. And if the majority of the years are in between -2 and -3, it's an easy course. And you definitely get that visual here in terms of birdies, almost 22%, bogeys 13%, so 9% more birdies already. And then the doubles, you have about 1.5%. So if you combine the two, birdies are at almost 22% versus 14.5% from doubles and bogeys. So very easy course, very easy. Driving accuracy here at TBC Deere Run, higher. I mentioned that the fairways are pretty darn easy to hit, even though the rough is, or can be penal. The fairways are pretty wide, pretty easy to hit. Green regulation percentage, very, very high. Again, speaking to the easiness of the course, because these greens are smaller than the average tour event. Scrambling percentage, players are more successful here than the average tour event. Again, adding to the easiness of the course. And if you see such a high dramatic difference between accuracy here versus a tour event, you would think that the distance might be lower due to course setup. Not the case here. Again, these fairways are just easy to hit, so the distance here is longer as well. So that leads me to think either off the tee is kind of hidden in importance or not important at all. Graphically, sorry, I know I'm scrolling, but graphically it says off the tee is not important. So we'll take a look at a year, or like especially last year, maybe dig into 2019's and see. And then proximity, closer here than the average tour event. Again, another reinforcing factor of how easy this course plays. Let's see. Before I forget, I mentioned 2019. This is one of the events that was canceled during 2020. So just for clarification. But I'll keep this course breakdown open. So one of the first things that we do after we go through the course breakdown and knowing the GCSAA tournament fact sheet, we're going to look at putting. And we're definitely going to be looking at bent green putting as soon as I figure out and remember where that is. While that loads, the reason why I'm not going to add a filter, I mentioned it in the GCSAA portion of the show. I'm going to skip over to green speed here. You see a lot of fast, but there's been average as well. So that is why, I mean, year over year, it kind of alternates between fast and average. I just don't have any confidence in it being fast every single round. I mean, last year played to average twice and fast twice. Now in 2019 it was fast all 4 rounds. In 2018 it was average all 4 rounds. So that is why I am looking just solely at bent green performance for now. And we'll come back to the historic conditions here in a bit. But let's take a look at bent green performance here. How many rounds do we have? Not nearly enough, as you can see. 18 being the most on bent. So I'm going to expand this out. Let's go to the start of the PGA Tour season. So September 13th. And how many rounds do we have on bent here? Still not a whole lot. Just 22 from the leader, and you go down. You do have double digits from most of the guys. I think that'll be okay, at least from an initial review perspective. So, since the start of the PGA Tour season, dating back to the Fortinet in September, your top performers on bent greens are Brendan Todd, Austin Cook, Christian Bezadenhout, Denny McCarthy, Patrick Rogers, Jim Knose, Scott Stallings, C.T. Pan, Maverick McNeely, Mark Hubbard, and Samuel No. So, interesting list of names here. Surprising not to see Denny McCarthy number one, but if he's not in the top 10, something has gone terribly wrong. McNeely, a California guy, you would think he putts POA very well, but he putts bent very, very well. POA is just his best. But he has putt bent this season pretty darn well. Let's see. You have C.T. Pan, Mark Hubbard. Samuel knows a very interesting name, Davis Riley, who's been playing fantastic golf as of late. But career-wise, bent is about field average. But he has been putting the daylights out lately. You've got the Byron Nelson, which was on bent. Charles Schwab, I believe, was on bent. The Memorial definitely on bent. So, and you can see here, Davis Riley was in the field for the Travelers. His stats are not out, so Fantasy National does not have the Traveler stats in yet. But there's a look at your top performers on bent green putting. Let's move to easy courses. As I mentioned, this is going to be the main overriding filter of the week. This course is just easy. Simply put, it is just easy. You have 31 rounds from Sahith. You go all the way down here. You've got a whole lot of players with double digits, so this is going to be plenty of sample size. So your top performers since the start of the PGA Tour season are in easy rounds. Those players are Alonto Griffin, Davis Riley, Taylor Moore, Maverick McNeely, Christian Bezadenhout, Tyler Duncan, Michael Thompson, Matthias Schwab, Mark Hubbard, and Andrew Landry. So quite a bit of overlap here already. You've got Davis Riley, while he wasn't in the top 10, he was very close to it. Maverick McNeely's top 10 in both bent green putting and on easy courses. Bezadenhout was in both. Mark Hubbard, top 10 in both. Let's see, Denny McCarthy, very close to top 10 in both. Let's see, other players, C.T. Pan, 16th on easy and top 10 in putting on bent. So quite a bit of overlap already. So some of the names that are starting to perhaps rise in your investigation, in your research of the John Deere. Let's see, anything else that we think we might want to take a look at in terms of filters. We're not going to do anything with course length. We don't have anything with architect. I noticed wind. I took a cursory glance at Wind Finder, and the forecast is hectic. It looks like wind could be a factor. We're not going to do too much, or we're not going to do any of it tonight. I'll double check Wind Finder again tomorrow, see what the forecast says. If it indeed does look like wind's going to be a factor, then we'll look at some wind stats tomorrow. Let's see. You mentioned that there's long rough here. Now, I said long and then I clicked short because long rough. We might want to look at some strokes gained around the green metrics in long rough. So plenty of rounds, again, dating back to the Fortinet in September. Your top performers in long, rough, strokes gained around the green: Samuel No, Daniel Berger, Adam Hadwin, Scott Gutschewski, Andrew Novak, Webb Simpson, James Hahn, Denny McCarthy, Brendan Todd, and Brian Stewart. So a whole lot of overlap now. Denny McCarthy's been in the top 10 2 of the 3 and tied for 11th in the other. You've got Samuel No in the putting and around the green. Daniel Berger, I think this is the first time he's top 10, but he was very close in strokes gained total easy. Let's see. I mentioned Denny McCarthy. Brendan Todd was number 1 in bent green putting and now top 10 in strokes gained around the green and long rough. There's Tagala. Bezadenhout has been top 15 in all 3. Interesting group of players here that are popping on these 3 filters. So let's go back to the historic conditions. As I mentioned, this course is very easy. You can see that most rounds play easy, or at least most tournaments play easy. You might have an average round sneak in from time to time, but generally speaking, this has been an easy tournament. The greens have always been bent, and part of the reason why the green and regulation percentage is higher here is it's just receptive. They have receptive greens, medium and soft. Now the fairways got difficult to hit for round 1 and 2 last year, but you can see how much of an outlier that is. Literally almost every single other round, measured round, hitting the fairways has been easy here. Always long rough. We looked at the green speeds, kind of alternating between average and fast. This is interesting. The course length here, it played short in 2019, so not sure what dramatic changes may have been for that year. Otherwise, it has been consistently in the 72 to 7,400 range, generally around that 7,300 number. So there's a look at the historic conditions. I'm actually going to bring up the leaderboard. Don't think we're going to go too much into it quite yet, but seeing how easy the course is, let's go ahead and jump to the birdies and bogeys. As one of the main things that I look at, especially when a course is easy, I look at birdies or better gained when a course is easy. So we add the easy filter, and I'm going to look at birdies or better, even though there wasn't a whole lot of eagle chances. Again, the par 5 second yields an eagle about 4% of the time. That's pretty high. But the other par 5s, less than 1%, and a 2.5. 2.5 is slightly under in terms of par 5 eagle percentage, and then a pretty high one in 4%. So not exactly confident that I want to look or include eagles. We're definitely going to be looking at birdies gained when it's easy. So from the start of the PGA Tour season, your top birdies or better gained players in easy rounds. Those players are Matthias Schwab, Davis Riley, Vincent Whaley, Cameron Percy, Maverick McNeely, Peter Malnati, Taylor Moore, Daniel Berger, Lonto Griffin, and Scott Brown. A lot of different names here. Vince Whaley, Cameron Percy. I believe we've said Schwab a couple of times now tonight already. Berger's been up there a bunch. I think this might be the first time we've said Peter Malnati tonight. I know it's the first time we've said Scott Brown tonight. So interesting stuff here. And if you want to look at birdies gained, so birdies are better and birdies gained, you got Matthias Schwab, first and first. Davis Riley, second and second. Really, the only one of these players that were top 10 in birdies or better gained that are also in the Eagles is Maverick McNeely, 5th in birdies or better, 2nd in Eagles, 22nd in birdies. Solid all 3. The Eagles are what's bringing up his birdies or better number. Let's see. Other players here that might be honorable mention, perhaps Emiliano Grillo, 11th in birdies or better, 21st in eagles, 19th in birdies on or in easy rounds since the start of the PGA Tour season. Pretty good numbers there. You've got Daniel Berger, 8th, 24th, and 9th. Solid numbers. Matthias Schwab, 1st, 28th, and 1st. That's about really all of them that are all of the players that are top 20 or close to in all three. So good stuff there. And the reason why I'm looking at birdies and birdies are better, I'll bring you to the leaderboard from last year. We'll go to that tab, birdies are better gained. There you go. While Kevin Na was slightly negative in terms of bogeys avoided to the field, you have to come all the way down to a tied for 34th before you get to a negative in birdies gained. And if we sort on the statistic, I mean, that is some of the strongest correlation you will see even for this statistic. Normally, if you're high in birdies gained, you're going to rise up the leaderboard. Still, this is very darn correlating even by this statistics standards. Your leader in birdies gained, or at least tied for the lead in birdies gained that season or that tournament last year, Lucas Glover won. Kevin Na, runner-up. Adam Schenk, top 5. Will Gordon was a top 30. And then a top 5, a runner-up, a top 5, a top 5, a top 10. Just very, very strong. Bogeys avoided, I mean, you can see just how more important birdies gained are than bogeys avoided. It's not to say that bogeys avoided isn't important at all, but your first single-digit finisher is about 12 people down, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So 11th in terms of bogeys avoided. There were 10 players above your winner, and none of those players finished in the top 10. Very good finishes. Top 20s, top 15s, a couple of middling finishes in there. But compare these numbers here on the left to the birdies gained. That's a lot more correlation for the birdies gained. So definitely going to be focusing on the birdies gained. And the reason why I don't think eagles is going to be such an important factor, it's not really all that necessary for high leaderboard success. Now, sure, Hank Lebioda gained quite a bit in the eagles, and I see Patrick Rogers down here had a 2.6, but it is not really mandatory. I mean, Lucas Glover was negative, Moore, Shank, Munoz. So if we sort on eagles, I mean, look, your number 2 player in eagles gained missed the cut. And then you come down here, Noren, Romero, Gligic, Badley, all these guys missed the cut, and yet they are some of the highest in terms of eagles gained. So that's why I'm leaning towards just birdies gained, although there's still an argument and a legitimate one to look at birdies are better, but I am leaning birdies gained. But before we get too much into the data, that's what we do for tomorrow, let's just kind of take a look at the strokes gained leaderboard and see what we can glean from last year's, and again, just a cursory look before we dig into the data tomorrow, but a cursory look and see what we can find here. So as I mentioned, it did not look like off the tee was a big factor. And as you can see, just looking at the top 10, convenient for ties. Looking at the top 10, you had 3 players that were negative in terms of strokes gained off the tee. Whereas those same top 10, not a single one of those top 10 were negative in strokes gained putting. Only one was negative in strokes gained approach. Let's move down to the top 22. And again, these seem like random numbers. These are just convenient for ties. So of the top 22, only 2, my big heads in the way. Only 2 were negative in terms of putting for last year's John Deere. You had 3 that were negative in strokes gained approach, and these 2, Patton Kazire and Brandon Hagee, were pretty darn close to field average. But Adam Schenk was not very good. He made all of his up in putting. But the off the tee, still just not all that important. 6 of the top 22 negative in terms of strokes gained off the tee. And I think that's going to be pretty consistent year over year, although we'll scrutinize that tomorrow. Let's see. I did not bring the tab up, but let's go ahead and do that. Your tournament history tab that shows the strokes gained total of the past 5 years. I went ahead and made that chart in Excel. So your defending champion is Lucas Glover, and he has played this event fairly well in the previous 5 years. He's got the win. He's got a top 10 and a top 25. But your total strokes gained leader of the past 5 years is Ryan Moore, your winner in 2016, although my spreadsheet will not count that because I only go back to 2017. And again, a reminder, this was one of the events canceled in 2020. But of the 5 previous editions played of the John Deere, Ryan Moore, winner in 2016, a clunker of a made cut, and then a top 20 and a runner-up last year. Scott Brown, he popped on 1 or 2 of the filters early on tonight. He has a top 5, a top 15, a top 25, another top 20. That's not going to be in my statistics, but another top 20 and then a missed cut. Let's see. You've got Zach Johnson, back-to-back winner early in the 2000 teens, or 2010s, I should say. He won in 2012. Believe he won in 2011 too. He's probably the strokes gained total leader in terms of the tournament since its inception, really. Zach Johnson loves TPC Deere Run. But again, my numbers will only go back to here. So while he has played it well, certainly not as well as he played it in the prime of his career. You've got Patrick Rogers, solo second, middling in the top 25. Charles Howell III, top 25, top 10, top 20. Let's see some other names here. Adam Schenk, 2 top 10s and a missed cut. Vaughn Taylor, probably no surprise with putting involved. He's generally going to be high on strokes gained total. Let's look at Vaughn Taylor real quick. Most of his work is done on Bermuda, and he has not putt well lately, but you can see over the course of his career, he is a generally good putter. But something has happened since the start of essentially the PGA Tour season. I mean, he had a bad performance at the Barbasol, but then you see here the PGA Tour season has been pretty bad, and he's generally a pretty good putter. So, although we are coming to the point of the schedule where he did start to take off a little bit, Memorial there, the Travelers he did not putt well, and then Rocket Mortgage, John Deere. Okay, so Vaughn Taylor up there, Andrew Landry, there's Daniel Berger, probably going to be the favorite this week in terms of the betting board. Let's see. Ben Martin, Steve Stricker in the field this week. Your champion in 2019, Dylan Fratelli. First time he played the course, he won and then missed the cut last year. Sam Ryder, 3 for 3. Cameron Percy, was surprised by his name, but look there. 2 top 15s and a missed cut. Okay. Let's look at the other end. See, for whatever reason, guys that don't play this event very well. Surprising to see. The leader in strokes gained total negative strokes gained total is Brendan Todd on a course that usually demands putting. He's got a top 20 and then missed cuts all the way around. So we'll take a look at Brendan Todd here. Generally, very, very good putter. He's been putting well lately, but yet does not play this event very well at all. Very interesting to see. You got Robert Streb, He's got a clunker of a made cut and 3 missed cuts. JJ Spawn, 1 for 2. Brian Gay, 1 for 3. Again, I'm going to start cutting off this 2016. Brian Gay, 1 for 3. Kadira, 0 for 2. D.A. Points, 0 for 3. JT Poston, the surprising top 5 run that he made this past weekend at the Travelers. Hopefully you listened on that one. It's one of the few things I got right this week. So I'll make sure to emphasize that, although we'll never be bashful about highlighting what I got wrong, i.e. Tom Hoagie was pretty high on Fleetwood. He didn't do much. Yeah. But anyway, so JT Poston, 2 for 4 here at the Travelers. Martin Trainer, 0 for 2. Andrew Putnam, poor. Ryan Armour, poor. So, okay. There's a list of names there for you. That's probably going to do it for the Fantasy National portion, just to get kind of a feel for a few things. Actually, you know what? Let's just do one more thing here. I'm going to take off the easy filter only because I remembered that all of the par 5s fall in between 550 and 600, at least on the scorecard. Let's just take a quick look at that. So no filters or anything, just your top performers on par 5s from 550 to 600 since the start of the PGA Tour season. You got Chris Stroud, Daniel Berger, Robert Streb, Brandon Wu, John Huh, Trey Mullinax, Martin Laird, Maverick McNeely, Dylan Fratelli, and Rory Sabatini. So McNeely popping on a whole bunch. He'll probably be, second or third favorite if I had to guess. Berger, you're probably your favorite coming in this week. So there's a list of the par 5s. So let me bring up Microsoft Excel. We're going to take a look a little bit at the comparison course spreadsheet that I put together. And again, this is just a reminder that this is a comparison between the course that we're at, so TPC Deere Run, versus every other full field course on the PGA Tour, at least with some data. So the Scottish we don't have. It's the first event on the PGA Tour season. You'll see I don't have the BMW. It's not a full field. The Canadian I need to update. Actually, no. I'm not going to update because we're not back at St. George's, Ontario next year for that. Places like the Masters, even though every year it's obviously at Augusta National, it's not a full field. The Tournament of Champions is not a full field. So this is only in relation to other full field courses. We see here John Deere says seemingly 300ths more important. Nothing to be excited about. Not a whole lot of weight to put in that. In fact, I don't think it's even average, just showing what the data is for the top 30 players. Now, approach, we have seen this, and we definitely saw the putting be extremely important. So those two are absolutely in agreement with the graphs from Fantasy National. Distance looks like it could matter a little bit, certainly not much of an extent. Fairways have always been easy to hit here, so that's perhaps one of the reasons why Brendan Todd is so negative in terms of strokes gained total, because when it's difficult to hit fairways, you can usually count on him to hit fairways. So if everybody's hitting fairways, he's going to lose his advantage. So that makes some sense there. But fairways gained, still a third of a shot more important than the average full field event course. But again, one of the reasons, the big defining reason, other than the metrics of Fantasy National and all that, look at this. Birdies gained, 6/10 more important than the average full field course event. And it's right in line with these other easy tournaments like the Barbasol. Barbasol actually might be the highest out of one. Rocket Mortgage, very easy. Let's see, other easy places. The Byron Nelson, TPC Craig Ranch, KH Lee destroys that place. The winning score is generally about minus 26. Very easy. It's up there with that. the farmers, surprisingly, the birdies are important there. American Express, another easy tournament, 0.7. So it's right in line with these other tournaments in terms of birdies gained. So we'll definitely be scrutinizing that. Another reason why I don't think eagles are all that important, or at least looking at birdies are better, it's just about average to a full field course here at TBC Deere Run. So, but definitely birdies. Definitely birdies. Strokes gained par 3. It rose for the winners heavily, but generally speaking, it's a little bit less important than the average full field course event. Nothing, spectacular. Nothing that screams ignore it, but certainly nothing dramatic like we saw last week at the Travelers in the par 4s, for example, or the par 4s 400 to 450. Nothing dramatic here. Now we move to the par 4s. Remember, there were 3 in this bucket here, 4 in here, 3 and 1. It says the 400 to 450s are going to be extremely important. We will scrutinize that tomorrow, but it's what it is showing here. Let's see. We have par 5s. Again, those said they were, at least graphically, the most important strokes gained by hole by par. For the top 30, it says it's about average for the full field course event. Makes some sense because the par 3s and the par 4s were fairly close in terms of overall numbers. So, makes sense. Proximity total looks like it could be somewhat important. Now, the majority of the approach shots in terms of relation to other PGA Tour events came from 125 to 150. Does not look like it is all that important. And 200 plus, slightly, maybe slightly. The big one here is 150 to 175. So we'll definitely take a look at that tomorrow, year over year, see what proximities, if any, are the biggest factor. But proximity total looks fairly high. So definitely going to be taking a look at that. So there's the course evaluation is what I call it. Now let's bring up the strokes gained total. This is that tournament history tab in Fantasy National, the strokes gained totals broken out by their individual statistic from 2017 forward. And the reason I go only back to 2017 is that golfers change. You don't want to go so far back that the data becomes obsolete, but you want to go far enough back that you get a good sample size. So I go back to 2017. I mean, golfers changing. The best example is Bryson. He's not the same golfer he was in 2017 that he is now. Stuart Sink is not nearly the golfer he was in 2017 that he is now. He's gained a bunch of distance. So golfers just change. But anyway, let's take a look here. So some of your top performers, Lucas Glover, your defending champion, has played this event 3 times since 2017. Average finish of 12th. He's 3 for 3. Charles Howell III, 3 for 3. Average finish of 16th. Chris Stroud, 18th. Pat Gazire, 22nd. Patrick Rogers, 23rd. Zach Johnson, again, former champion twice or 3 times, 4 for 4. Vaughn Taylor, 4 for 4. Let's see some of these other players that we saw at the bottom end. Let's see. There's Brandler, there's Ryan Brim, Martin Trainer we mentioned, Brian Davis, JJ Spawn. Joey, it's been a while. How you doing? Thanks for jumping in chat. Hopefully your Travelers went well. I know you went on vacation for a bit. Hopefully that was a good time. But thanks for jumping in chat. It's good to have you back. But there's your total strokes gained leader in terms of negative. Brendan Todd is not getting off the tee at all. Approach is bad, to be expected. So let's see. Of your top performers, looks like off the tee is fairly consistently, slightly important, I guess. Certainly not a whole lot of heavy green up here, except for maybe Patrick Rogers. Seifert's only played it one time. The approach, Lucas Glover, Doug Gim, although that's only one time. But it looks like Patrick Rogers is going around this course in off the tee and putting. You see a pretty high propensity of green up here. You do have Doug Gim doing Doug Gim things. Lots of approach, okay off the tee, not making some putts. But there's a pretty good high propensity of putting here. Let's look at birdies gained, since we know that is so important. Oh yeah, look at this. A whole lot of green here. Whole lot of green. So Lucas Glover much higher. CH3 is actually higher in the bogeys. Chris Stroud higher. The one exception here is Doug Gim, which he's only played it once. Higher in birdies. About the same, but higher in birdies. Higher in birdies. Higher in birdies. P, what's up? How was your Travelers? Hopefully you had a lot of JT Poston like I recommended. Hopefully you did not have a lot of Tom Hoagie like I recommended. All these other plays that kind of just didn't work out well for me. Cantley really tanked my fantasy team, DFS teams, with his performance today on Sunday. But hopefully your Travelers went well. Had some outrights that hit and whatnot. So thanks for jumping in chat. What are you looking forward to for the John Deere? All that good stuff. But you see here, look at all the birdies here. We saw that in the leaderboard and the graphs. Par threes, maybe a little bit. Par fours, still par fours are generally just one of the most important statistic on PGA Tour. 70% of the holes are par fours. 400 to 450 does look like it is the most important length in terms of the players that have played this event well multiple times. Par fives, interesting to see. Lucas Glover, field average essentially. 550 to 600. Let's see, I just unclicked off of it. Let's go down to maybe the top 20 here. So Brandon Hagee, your average is 1.0 flat. Let's see. In this one, 0.6 and then 0.1. So yeah, 550 to 600. Okay, I can believe that. Let's do that for the par fours actually. Par fours, 350 to 400 will come down to Brandon Hagee. Average here of 0.1. 400 to 450, average of 1.8. It's pretty high. 450 to 500, 1.3. So these two are the main two, and again, we'll really scrutinize that tomorrow. Finally, let's take a look at proximity. As I mentioned, it might look like proximity total might be a thing we want to look at this week. Look at these two very high greens, although Doug Gim is just one time. But your defending champion, very, very good, probably second in proximity total. But then again, you have Charles Howell III, not very strong in proximity. Svensson's only one time. Stroud's about field average. Zach Johnson, very good. Vaughn Taylor, very good. Henrik Norlander, not good. Interesting stuff here. Ryan Moore has played this event extremely well year over year. Very good in proximity. Very good in that 150 to 175. That was fairly surprising in the course evaluation tab. Interesting. Lucas Glover, very good in that statistic as well. But the most important, at least graphically, said that this was it. So again, let's do that top 20. The average here is 2.1. The average here is 11.8. If we do the 200 plus, 18.2. All right. Interesting stuff to look at there. We are getting close to time. I don't want to go too much into it because we're going to be doing a whole lot of scrutinizing tomorrow. I can bring up some research that I've done in terms of trying to find some winners here. But again, just to emphasize the birdies versus the bogeys. So these are the winners. Lucas Glover in 2021, Fratelli in 19, Michael Kim in 2018, so on and so forth. Let's just look at the disparity between birdies and bogeys. Double here from Lucas Glover last year. Now Dylan Fratelli is a bit of an outlier. 8 in terms of bogeys avoided versus 5.5 in birdies. He is an outlier, but he had higher in bogeys, to be fair. Almost 2.5 times from Michael Kim in terms of birdies. 2.5 times from Bryson in 2017. Ryan Moore, very close, slightly higher in bogeys avoided, but pretty darn close to each other. Jordan Spieth in 2015 and in 2013. Much more higher in birdies than bogeys for both of those years. Brian Harmon in 2014, higher in birdies. Zach Johnson in 2012, higher in birdies. So one of the things that I've been looking at, and the reason why I've put so much emphasis into birdies, is that fact there, gaining all these, or tabulating all these statistics, gathering them for your previous winners. Let's see. Players with putting form maybe coming in. Lucas Glover had some very good putting form coming in, leading to his win to the John Deere. Dylan Fratelli did not. Generally not a good putter anyway, but had a very good week on the greens. So not good putting form coming in. Michael Kim, I mean, look at that. He gained 13.5 strokes on the greens that week alone. I don't know if he missed a putt. He might have had 72 putts on that week. 13.5 is ridiculous. He apparently made everything. But he had mixed putting form coming in. Let's see. Again, more mixed putting form coming from Desham when he won. Mower. So Glover had some good putting form coming in, but it doesn't look like it is mandatory. So that's why a lot of times I don't put in a whole lot of putting in terms of importance in the final mixed condition model. Now sometimes like Poet, it can matter. I'll definitely be doing some research around these tournaments, which of them are bent, if there is good bent green performance coming in as opposed to overall putting performance. Maybe that's a deal. But there's a look at a bit of the research that I have done, at least from the winner's perspective. So I think that is probably going to do it for tonight. I'll bring you back to this color-coded chart for you in case you want to jot down some numbers or pause the video and whatnot for your own research. But again, in the comments, let me know how your Travelers went. If you missed the intro, mine was a very mixed bag. DFS-wise was very poor. I wouldn't call it a disaster, but it was very, very poor. I did get saved from a couple of outright wagers. JT Poston being the big one that hit for me, kind of saved my week, in that regard. But yeah, I would kind of be interested to hear if you did take my advice, didn't take my advice, how you did, all that good stuff, and hopefully you just had some success. Maybe you bet Xander at a very low price. I didn't. I thought he had a decent chance to win, but Patrick Cantley was my favorite coming in. Had a pretty good chance until he shit the bed today. Let's see, I was too low on Sahith Theegala. Hopefully he had a lot of Sahith Theegala. But Joey, it's good to see you again. Thanks for jumping in chat. P, thanks for jumping in chat like you always do. Really appreciate it, and I appreciate all the support and you all tuning in and watching and listening. It's the reason why I do what I do. I enjoy doing this and interacting with you all, bouncing ideas off each other. So for all of the wagers you had this week at the Travelers, for all of your DFS contests you had at the Travelers, and until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive Show, may all your bets be profitable.